Jennings Smith. What's going on, man? Welcome to Dad Edge.
Hey, Larry. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate you inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. Me too. Man, our relationship goes back 13 months ago. I remember because it was the beginning of May when we met actually in Florida at an event.
Yes.
And you were speaking there and so was I.
I know you told a very compelling story and kind of changed my perspective on business and priorities and putting the first things first. And I know that principle of what you focus on expands is true. And I just felt like at that point in my life, I really needed to put a focus on my family and my wife and my kids and my relationships, or I was going to end up, with not too many left if I didn't get that on track.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, man. That was, I was asked to kick that event off I had never spoken to a room full of real estate investors.
Oh yeah.
Slash business owners. But when I asked the host, I was like, hey, what do you want me to speak on? And he basically said, we've got amazing speakers, for parts of real estate investing and businesses and that kind of thing. He said, but what I really need is for the people who are attending, not to forget the relationships under their own roof and how to optimize those. Cause we can build empires of businesses, right? But it's all for nothing if we don't have, the relationships with our family in check. So I'm really glad that really hit for you. But what was, when you say that it really got your attention and it was something you needed at the time, you come across to me as like, it didn't seem like there was like anything alarming going on or anything like that. Or maybe it was just a slight tug or maybe a tap on the shoulder of a different direction you needed to go in. But what was it for you?
Yeah. I wouldn't say I was in the emergency room, with the relationships, but I found myself being overly critical to my eldest son. And he's similar to me, a lot similar to me. And I love him and I want the best for him. And he's super talented. But the way that I was interacting and engaging with him, it just wasn't effective. Like there's no way to put it other than it was not effective. And it was also affecting my relationship with my wife, right? Because she sees the way that I'm short with him or rude to him or condescending or angry or flipping out over whatever, and how long term that's going to yield a tough relationship. I mean, it's not going to get any easier as he gets into teenagerhood. And eventually, if you treat your kid poorly enough, they don't want anything to do with you. And so I just was like, I mean, he was only 8.5 at the time, and he's 10 now, just turned 10 last week. But I knew that I needed to course correct, right? I wasn't hundreds of miles off course, but that I needed to shift a few degrees over is what really got to me in your talk.
So we're going to dive into this a little more because I love where we're starting at, man. And he is your oldest, correct?
That's right.
That's right. And how many kids do you have? Just share with the audience so they know. I know, but they don't know.
Yeah. So I have 4 children. Jennings, who's 10, and then McCarthy is 7. My daughter Heidi's 4, and then my other daughter Sophie is 2. And then I've been married for 14 years to my wife Jessica.
Cool name.
Jessica.
Yeah. We both have Jessicas in our life. That's cool, man. 4 kids. Did you think that you were going to be a father of 4 when you first got married?
Actually, I did. Really? I was one of 4, and my wife was one of 3. And now after having 3, I said, you know what? I think I'm good. Like this is a lot. When you're a child, you know what you know, and if you're one of 2 or you're an only child or whatever, you kind of think that your life is going to go that way. But when you're an adult, you realize how hard your parents were working to raise you, and especially when kids are young, it's just brute force. It's just a lot of lack of sleep and putting travel on hold, and nothing is convenient. And And a lot of that does fall on my wife. I don't want to complain too much, but it's just, I did not realize that. So I was like, I'm good with 3, but she wanted to have 4. And as soon as she mentioned, I think I do want to have 4, I was like, okay, that's great. That's fine. And Sophie, of course, is a joy and love to have her around. So can't imagine life without her. So we're glad we did it.
That's cool, man. I got to tell you, the transition for us, from 2 to 3 was way harder than 3 to 4. It sounds like that might've been this. Was that the same for you?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a jump. It's a jump to 3 for sure.
I don't know what it was. I mean, for us, so you have Jennings 10 and then your daughter is 8, correct?
McCarthy's is 7.
7. Okay. So 10, 7, and then youngest is 2.
Heidi's 4, and then Sophie's 2.
Okay. So you had 3 years. So that's not a huge gap for us. Between second and third was 6 years. So it was really kind of weird for us because we had 2 boys in like little league and we were running here and running there. And it's like, they're little people. We were completely and totally out of the baby phase. So going back to like diapers and sleepless nights and stuff like that, after not really having that for 4 to 5 years, was like, whoa, this is hardcore stuff. But so it really sounds like the attention that had the thing that had your attention was your relationship with Jennings. And, and it seemed, things seemed tense, but I would love for you to just share some more detail around that. I mean, and by the way, you're in good company. I mean, as you know, the reason I started Dad Edge was because I had a horrible moment with my 4-year-old who's now 14. And that's how Dad Edge got started. But what were some of your most common frustrations when it came to just that relationship alone?
Well, I think seeing a lot of the things that I struggled with, being forgetful, being absent-minded, having to be told things a million times to get them done, and how that had not served me in life. And so not wanting that for him. And through just self-reflection and focusing on it. So I'm in the Dad Edge Alliance, where we meet once a week. I'm in the Friday group, and it's your mastermind, of course, for your listeners, and just focusing on that for an hour and a half a week and becoming more self-aware was helpful. Where it's like, hey, I turned out fine. Jennings is going to turn out fine. I don't need to correct every little thing that he does. And he is who he is, right? That's the way that God made him. And yeah, it's my job to train him to some degree. But a lot of that stuff is just, he's going to grow out of it and he's going to get beyond it. And then also it was understanding how to motivate him and understanding my kid better than, I think of it as like tools in a toolbox, right? So you've got the hammer, and for some kids, the hammer works. You kind of get stern with them. You tell them, hey, you better do this or straighten up or whatever. And they do. And it's effective. For other kids, it's not. And so with Jennings, it was like, this method of disciplining, training, whatever, is just not effective. It's not getting the results that we want to get. And so instead of just like doing the same thing over and over, I had to become a better dad. I had to figure out, okay, what motivates this kid? What drives him? Like, what excites him? How can I get him to get what he wants so that I can get what I want, right? How can we live? And I think you told a story about your son waking up. It was, I think it was you with your son. Was very difficult to wake up, and you'd have to end up coming in there and yelling at him, shaking him, whatever. And he was saying, I think you finally asked him, like, how would you like to be woken up? Like, what would be your perfect morning? And I think maybe it was Jason, but it was just an unlocking the child's psychology of how he thought. And that was all it was. And then the child reacted to that. And so with Jennings, same thing. It was like, I couldn't I couldn't get him to get up in the morning. I mean, he would sleep in till 9, 10 o'clock. And he was, staying up late and not going to sleep and tired at school and just starting off with a bad morning. And so, yeah, I mean, I started with, okay, your alarm clock's going off. And if you don't get up, you're doing push-ups and, eventually, I'm maybe going to come in there and threaten you with spraying you with a water bottle or whatever, that's the hammer, and that didn't work. It just created a horrible day, right? It sets the tone for just conflict. And so I realized what my son wants more than anything is he wants to be an adult. Like if he could fast forward to being 21 years old with a car and in college and like he would do it. And so he really wants his freedom. And some of the kids in the neighborhood are riding their bikes to the candy store. And so he really wanted to ride his bike to the candy store, but I did not think he was old enough or responsible enough because it's probably 4 or 5 blocks away. And so I said, listen, if you can show yourself responsible and do this, I'm going to let you ride your bike to the candy store, like with your friends, with me. Like I'll ride with you a few times to show you the ropes. And I mean, he lit up. Like I had hit on a nerve there. Like, and you think about like, do you do stuff that you don't want to do with no reward? I mean, I don't. Like, I want to know what's in it for me. Like, what am I going to get out of this? Like, why am I working towards this goal? What's the point? What's the purpose? And when I identified that and showed him how this was going to help him, so we made a plan. He said, yeah, I'm going to wake up at 7 o'clock. And I said, well, how long do you think you should do it for to earn the ability to go to Garen's, the candy store? He said, 30 days. If I can do it for a month, then I'll go. I said, well, what happens if you mess up? What if you sleep in? It's like, well, then I have to start over. It's like, all right, that's going to be really hard. If you get halfway through, or it's going to be hard for me too. So don't do that. And he's like, yeah, but what about the weekends? Can I sleep? I said, all right, you can sleep until 8:30 on the weekends, and you got to get up at, I think, 7:30 on the weekdays. So we agreed, we wrote it down, and we signed it. And the next day, I mean, I'm in my office, alarm clock hadn't even gone off. And he's like up, dressed, teeth brushed, hair brushed. He's like, am I good, Dad? I'm like, you're good. One day down. And for the first week, the alarm clock did not even go off. Then the alarm clock woke up, but by 7:30, I mean, he was done. He was ready. He was good to go. And I'm really glad that he didn't mess up. So he didn't even have to rewind back. He made it all 30 days, perfect record. No even close calls. And it just showed me the power of understanding your child and what motivates him and what drives him and what's important to him versus just, this is the way it is. I'm bigger than you. I'm the dad. So I can kind of force you to go this route until you leave, and then you don't want to have anything to do with me because I treated you like an ass for 15 years,
That's a great story, man. And a very, very powerful one. And I want to make sure that the audience heard one big thing in there. And that is the agreement that you guys had. I had a parenting expert on the podcast several months ago, and it was all around discipline and all around basically getting your kids to do whatever it is that they need to do, that you need them to do, in order to be like a functional human being, right? Whether it's chores or getting up on time and this kind of thing. And what happens is, as parents, is we play this card of like, because I'm your dad, or because I said so, or because that's just the way it is. And he's like, that's incredibly ineffective. And you're exactly right, Jennings. I mean, what that does is it leaves a really bad taste in your kid's mouth. And then they're like, I don't understand that. Like, I'm not really, I don't understand why that's the way it is. However, if you do what you did, which is leverage, this is what we agreed upon. This is the agreement. And I love the fact that you even had him sign it. That's so cool, because it's not about going against dad's will. And it's not about because dad said so. It's because of this sort of very objective thing called the agreement. We both agreed on this. So if you had to hold him accountable, if he wasn't executing on his promise, it's not because I told you so. And it's not because of dad. It's like, hey, this is what we agreed on. This is what you agreed on. Like, we signed it. Like, look, it's right here, right? It's not because I said so. And it's not because you need to do this because of all the important things that I need to regurgitate to you of why this needs to happen. This is the agreement. So agreements are very, very powerful, especially with kids. And we do this in our house. And I remember before we had this parenting expert on the podcast, like Jessica and I would bang our head up against the wall sometime. Like, why aren't these kids just doing what we tell them to do? Well, if you formulate an agreement, it's different. So that is cool, man. What's your relationship with Jennings now? I mean, like, you've been doing life with us and Dad Edge Accelerator for over a year now. And what has the past year been like?
Yeah, I would love to say it's all perfect and butterflies and roses.
But we wouldn't believe you anyway. It's my life is not that either.
You know, because the problem with kids is they're very persistent. You know, they want to argue and negotiate every single thing. And sometimes you do have to be like, well, this is just what we're doing. Okay, I don't have time to go through and explain to you why you can't stay up till 2 a.m. eating cotton candy. We got to go to bed. But yeah, I would say that it's the spirit has changed, you know, to a large degree, where I'm checking myself on certain things, and I am and I think that even spouses can generate negative activity to where I catch myself like, I don't want to be venting to my wife Jessica about a kid, one of my children. Oh, he's doing this or she's doing that, or vice versa, right? Because then that makes them turn around and it's like they're almost holding an offense on your behalf, and they're already like half mad at the child for aggravating your spouse. And so I've been careful with that, you know, stopping that cycle of almost gossiping about your kid. It's kind of a weird concept, but when you're talking poorly of your child, it really is not serving the other partner. Now, if there's a problem and you're working it out, I get that. So that has changed. And then, yeah, seeing the problems from a different perspective, as far as what is the solution, what's the motivating thing. If it's a consistent, this is usually an issue. This is something that we've got to work through. You know, then there's still the one-off times, and I'm not saying I never lose my temper or I'm short or rude or whatever, but trying to treat the kids more as like applying some of the tactics that we know from business and how to win friends and influence people and never split the difference, and that sort of mentality where, you know, everyone likes to be treated with respect, and everybody wants to have buy-in. Everybody wants to be a part of the solution, have ownership in that, have agreement. Nobody likes to be under an authoritarian dictator. And so why do you think your children are going to like that? And so you got to have that to some degree, but not in everything, you know, and where you can bring them in on that, how can you do that? And then I think the other thing that's changed is focusing on taking opportunities, right? So I flew out to Tulsa to check out an apartment deal, and I brought Jennings with me, and we got stuck. The flight got delayed. We had to spend the night in the Dallas airport, and then we missed our flight. And it was a huge adventure to him. It was great. And because he was with me, I didn't feel like it was totally lost, right? If I had been out there and I'd been delayed another day and like putting more stress on my wife, would have been really bad. But because Jennings was there, I was like, hey, he's having a blast. We're going out to eat at midnight at the hotel because we missed our flight. We're late and this and that. I mean, he loved it. And then, you know, a month ago, I had to go check out some property down in the Bahamas in Exuma. And so I brought McCarthy with me. McCarthy, come on with me. And he had a phenomenal time, and just focusing on integrating them in my life, in my work, more so than I was doing before, I think is also a big difference.
That is huge, man. I love how you incorporate, that's what we call work-life integration, right? And the other cool thing too is that you're bringing your kids in on your business, right? So they actually get to see, well, what does my dad do? And, how does he make money, and how do we be successful? My kids are a big part of Dad Edge. I bring, anytime I leave town, I'm always bringing either all of them, as I did at the speaking event that I met you at. I had the whole family with me, or I bring at least one of them. And I just think it's really cool to integrate those things with our kids. You're very, very business savvy, and I know real estate is one part of what you do, and you have other businesses as well. But you're an incredibly successful entrepreneur, and I would really like to know, for the men who are listening, right, whether they are business owners, whether they're career guys, W-2s, or whether they're like the side hustlers, right? We have a lot of guys who are very intrigued to start something, or they have something. But what have you found are the things that you really, really hang your hat on, as far as why are you successful?
Well, if I could distill it into a couple different points, I mean, that's a big, broad-reaching question. But I think that a big factor for me is wanting it. Wanting to elevate my standards and wanting to do something different. Where I wanted to have more time with my kids and my wife and my family, and I wanted to go on vacation and go to these places, and I wanted to have a nice house and have a nice car, and I wanted more. To be frank, I wanted more. I didn't want to live an average or mediocre life, and I wanted achievement. I wanted to win. Now, as I've gotten a little older, I kind of realize the dangers of tying your identity and your self-worth to achievement and accomplishment and what people think about you and your possessions, right? Your bank account, whatever you have. But that was probably a glimmer. And I think that some people, they don't really, maybe they have that, but they aren't willing to work for it. It's not big enough. Right. And so going through pain, where 2008, 9, 10 was very difficult. I was in construction and the economy fell apart, and my company lost 50 grand. I owed the IRS. I owed credit card companies a lot of money. I had renovated a house that was half done. It was going over budget. And I was also in a rental. So I'm paying 2, mortgage payments or whatever. And things were not good. And I would work all day in construction to try and keep my guys busy and make a little bit of money. And then after that, I would go to Home Depot and buy a couple of those little peep sites and install them indoors. I would knock door to door and ask, hey, do you want me to install this peep site? I'll do it for $20 right now. And I could buy them for $5. And if I knocked enough doors, I could make an extra $100 a day. And I needed it, like to pay my rent, to buy food. I mean, and I'm like, I'm never going back here, dude. Like, I think that when people go through something that shakes them like that and is that painful as a catalyst, they're like, I don't want to have to go through that again. And so as I scraped my way out of that hole and the economy got better with construction, I thought, I need assets. Like I got to buy real estate. I've got to get cash flowing assets. I got to get stuff that, because when this happens again, I'm going to be ready. And so, I started working towards that. And that was my catalyst. So I think that, so the desire and wanting it bad enough is really, really critical. And then persistence, like understanding that it's not going to be easy. It's going to take time. It's going to take work. It's going to take effort and persistence. So I see people in my mentoring group who are trying to buy their first multifamily or whatever, get their first rental home. And the ones that are persistent, they make it, right? If they just show up and do the work, it may take them 3 months, 6 months, whatever, but they close a deal versus the people that are real fired up for a month or two, flake out, like that sustained action over time always yields results. And then the third point is the people you're around. I was horrible with this. I did not value relationships as much as I could have, like getting in the right rooms, going to conferences, elevating my relationships. And I just thought, oh, well, I don't need that. All I need to do is like read a book, learn it. Once I learn it, I'll be able to do it. But so much of it is between our ears. And I had to unlock that through mentoring, groups like the Dad Edge, groups like going to some real estate conferences, I'm in a mastermind, the DM family. And that really changed everything, because when you have the borrowed belief of someone who's already there and they see where you're at, and they tell you you're going to make it, you're going to do it. You just got to do this and this, and you're going to be golden. Or seeing other people that are no smarter than you, they don't work any harder than you, and they can make 10 times as much income or have 5 times as much business. Like, how can they do that? If they can do that, I can do that. Why can't I do that? They're no better than me. And that has been a huge shift for me, is elevating those relationships. So that would be my 3, I would say, core tenets to success.
Man, that is awesome. First of all, I want to recognize and appreciate the motivation for you came from experiencing what you didn't want to continue to experience for the rest of your life. You're like, this has got to change. This has got to stop. And, it's funny, man, as I had an aha moment kind of like that in college, where I was working because I had to pay for school, and I was working 36 hours a week and, full time, as well as going to school, away from home, all that good stuff. And then I had to do my internship, which added another 40 hours a week on top of my already 36 and finalizing school. And I remember that time where I was like, this is insane. Like, all I would do is sleep, eat, work, school. That was it. That was my day. Like, literally, there was no breaks in it. And I thought to myself, I was like, I do not want to have to do this I do not want this type of schedule when I'm older. I can't imagine being a family man, and I can't imagine getting married, and this is my life. Like, it's absolutely terrifying. The cool thing too, there's 2 elements in there. Networking was one. And the third one was surrounding yourself with people who are a bit ahead of you, right? Get into rooms where people are smarter than you. I want to talk about the power of relationships and networking. Why do you value that so much now, and perhaps didn't value it earlier? And what was the gap of like, man, I didn't value this then, I do now, but I'm certain you probably know why.
Yeah. I think it was probably just unawareness, right? I had never been around it. My mentor growing up was my dad. Like, he was or is real estate guy, but he kind of self-made, and where he had a door-to-door frozen foods company. So he was selling food door to door. So he had that entrepreneurial spirit. He had that drive. But you're not going to make a whole lot of money selling frozen foods door to door. And he finally switched over to being a real estate agent. Same sort of thing, where you can make $100,000 or more fairly easily, and you can, and it's sales, and it's kind of your own boss. And then he moved into buying rental homes, and he amassed, I think, 14 rental homes over 15 years or so. And so he pretty much was a do-it-yourselfer, I guess. Like, he didn't buy into like leveling up and country clubs and getting into the circles. And so that just was kind of what I knew. And so he encouraged me to start my own construction company. And I think that if I just followed in that path, it's like I would have lived a decent life. I would have made decent money. But yeah, I was working all the time. I was pretty much scraping by, and I wanted to do something different. And I think that we were talking before the call. We have like a thermostat of where you expect your life to be. So if you're homeless on the street, maybe your thermostat set at 10. And if things get better in your life, the habits and the what you expect of life, you're going to kind of drift back to the 10. Maybe you're at a 50. You've got a 9-to-5 job. You're making $30,000-$40,000 a year. You're living in a crappy apartment. You're eating fast food all the time. But that's the kind of the way you grew up, and that's what you expect out of life. And yeah, you get a windfall. An aunt dies, and you get $100,000. Well, over time, you're probably going to drift right back down to that level of your thermostat. And so I would say that was it. Like, that was just what I knew, what I was comfortable with. It's like, hey, make some money, don't make too much money, and work hard and put your head down. And really, one relationship can change everything. I had a call with a guy just yesterday. He said, "Oh, I've got this connection. He lives out of country, but he's looking to place $6 million in the next, 3 to 4 months. Can you help him? I vouched for you." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I got some opportunities here and there, and let's talk." And so that kind of thing can change everything. Or I made a relationship at a sailing class, and I've wholesaled probably 50 homes with this guy, made hundreds of thousands of dollars with this guy, just because I did something weird and took days off and had time to go to this sailing class and meet somebody. But then I took persistent action on it as well. And so I think that really it was just ignorance, was not recognizing how important these relationships were. And so when I was asked to be in this mastermind, it was $35,000 a year to be in this mastermind. And if you had asked me that a year ago, I would have been thinking, at the time, you're smoking crack. I mean, I've never paid that much money just to be around somebody and be in the room and have these relationships. And yet I did. I was in the position where I could make that choice, and I committed to it. And at the time, it was a big stretch. This was 2.5 years ago. And that investment has paid off in spades. I mean, it was a huge investment at the time, but it's returned tenfold easily, that investment.
What's so cool is that, it's not necessarily the cost of doing what you did monetarily, right? $35,000 a year. That's a lot of money. But think of the cost if you didn't. What would that have cost been?
I know. And yeah, because these type of people, they can collapse time for you. It's just like when you read a book, it's somebody's life story and all the lessons they've learned in a book, right? And the book is great. The book is good. But when you have a real life person that you can call when you're in a crux, when you're in a decision and you're about to make a big mistake, or you're about to make a big win, and they can guide you, they can advise you, and they know sort of the parameters of what's going on in your life, that's different. That's invaluable. And that shortens that runway, majorly shortens that runway of what would have taken you a decade or more of just beating your head against the wall. It's like, yeah, you can figure it out yourself. I mean, I did that I bought a real estate course on how to buy multifamily, and everything in there I probably could have found on YouTube, and I could have cobbled it together, and I could have found this and I could have found that, but it would have taken me way longer. And I don't know that I would have ever had the confidence like, this is all right. I had an expert checking this over and putting this all together. The same thing with my deal room. I mean, I focus on building the relationships that you're going to need to close multifamily deals, because it's a relationship business, and plugging into that relationship. It's like, can you go out there and start all those relationships from scratch and just find random people on the internet and Facebook? Yes, you can. I don't know how long it's going to take you. But I'm looking to collapse time, and wealthy people, good business people, they're willing to pay to shorten that time from commitment to success, right? They understand that's the only resource that they can't get back. And if I can help people accomplish that goals with a higher rate of certainty and a shorter time frame, that's valuable.
Man, that is gold. I remember joining my first mastermind, and I remember so mine was only $600 a month. And I remember
that's a commitment.
it was a commitment, especially when you have, a platform that doesn't generate any revenue, because that's where I was back in 2014 and 15. Dad Edge was simply just a hobby. I had just started podcasting. And I remember talking to this mentor, and he by far is still one of my best mentors. He's been on the show twice, Aaron Walker. And he's bought and sold 8 businesses over the years, and he's in his 60s now. He retired for the first time when he was 27 and had made plenty of money. He never had to work again. Took I think 3 or 5 years off. And then, his wife woke him up one day and she's like, "Hey, you're getting fat and out of shape and you're taking too many naps. You need to go back to work." So he did. But, when I first, he came to me and he's like, "Hey, I'd like to invite you to be a part of this mastermind, because I think it would be good for Dad Edge and where a compass and where it could go. And you'll be in a room of other like-minded Christian businessmen, and we'll help you, with this." And I was like, "Okay, well, how much is it?" $600 a month. I was like, "Dude, that's crazy. I don't even have that. I'm not even generating that right now." And I was like, it costs too much. That's what I said. It costs too much. And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "If you come join us, it's $600 a month, and it's going to cost you not only your financially, but your time." He's like, minimum an hour a week, minimum. He's like, "So there's a cost there." He's like, "But there's also a cost to not doing anything, and there's a cost to keep, you're going on the same trajectory you are now." He's like, "I want you to think about something. I want you to think about, where is Dad Edge going to be in a year if you don't get some guidance and some direction? Are you still going to be, is sitting where you are now, and there's no revenue coming in, and this incredible platform and this incredible mission that you have dies because there was nothing feeding it? What does that life look like? What's the cost of that?" And I was like, I don't know what it was, but I was very speechless. And he's like, "Call me in 24 hours with your answer." I picked up the phone 11 minutes later and I said, "I'm in." Yeah. And ever since then, I don't look at opportunities like that as only a cost of monetary and time. I look at it as, if I don't do this, what is that going to look like? And just about every investment I've made with coaches or mentors or masterminds, or being in a certain room with a community of people, it's never been a bad decision. It's always turned out to be a good one. So I love that, man. As we wrap up this show, we've given a lot of men some gems on business, right, and fatherhood. I want to move to you and Jessica. You guys been married for 14 years, 4 kids. You run several different businesses. How do you keep your marriage with her on point?
Well, I definitely have to give credit to the Lord. I think, God put us together. And she's a phenomenal person. Very, very good-hearted person, and is easy to get along with. And I know that isn't always the case with everybody's marriage. So I want to preface it by, I picked good to begin with. But I think that some of the stuff we talked about in the Dad Edge is very powerful, where and it's not complicated, right? It's like asking her, what do I do that makes you feel most loved? Or what am I doing that makes you feel connected to me? And you think, but maybe you do, but maybe you don't. And even if you don't, or even if you do, it's good to have her reiterate it. So I asked her that question, and she said that, when you talk to me, like when we're talking and we're connecting and we're really having a good conversation, and that's hard with 4 kids, but I knew I love it. And I like it too. Like when we're really connecting on that same wavelength, and you probably know what I'm talking about with your wife, where it's like, there's just certain conversations where you guys are just like, you're meshing. It's fun. The conversation is flowing easily. And so then it's like, well, how do you recreate that? How can you how can you recreate that on a regular basis where it's not just this magical thing that happens every so often? How can you consistently at least put yourself in the position to win, right? Because that's back to the persistence. So we do this thing called couch time, and it's just where every day we set aside some time to sit on the couch or on the chair or wherever we are, and we tell the kid, like, you got to leave us alone, like, go away. Like, we're talking for 20 minutes, we're talking for 15 minutes, and connecting and debriefing. And so that is, I think, one way to put yourself in the position to win in the relationship with your wife. And then secondly, when you're in those conversations, asking better questions where you're not just saying, oh, how was your day? Were the kids good? Did you go to swim team? Whatever. You're asking better questions. And you guys provided a cool list of questions. You can Google it. I mean, like, think about it. What's a cool question to ask your wife on a date? Like, there's going to be hundreds of questions. It's like, it's not that hard if we just think. And asking those questions, like, what's something that I've done that makes you feel loved? That was a good one. Or what was the best part of your day? What really gave you energy? What's a time in your childhood where you really felt alive? When did you feel like you had transitioned from a child to a woman? Like, when did you feel that exhilaration of freedom as a kid? Like, just reliving stories. Like, they don't have to have an agenda or anything, but that's going to unlock some of those deeper connection conversations. And I think that is super, super critical and has generated a lot of goodwill and relationship there. But putting myself, because even before the Dad Edge, we were consistently having that time every day where it's like, our relationship needs to come first, right? It's above the kids. It's above everything. Because if that relationship ain't right, like, it's really hard for your kids to feel stable and to feel safe and to feel loved and to be happy, and for you to have a good relationship with them. Like, I mean, if your wife's pissed off at you or vice versa, like, it just, everything goes to crap. And so keeping that priority, which my parents modeled well, they always were like, hey, our relationship's got to come first, and you need to give us time to go on dates, to work on it. And that's another thing about having a little bit more income, is you can pay for a babysitter and you can go on dates.
Man, that, I got to tell you, so many guys get that wrong. And when I say that, I mean, they don't identify their relationship being married first. They identify being parents first. Right. And listen, that's super important too. It's very important. Jessica and I, my Jessica, we always say all the time that we are married first and parents second. And now when I say second, it's like a micro fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percentage, right? But I am her husband first. She is my wife first, right? Now, if the kids need something urgently, I mean, for crying out loud, of course, we're going to attend to that, right? But yeah, the lowest hanging fruit that we can do in that relationship is ask better questions, and you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. The quality of our relationship with our wife will be dependent on the quality of the questions that we ask ourselves and her, and what she asks of us. If we're not constantly curious about the person, the woman that she is, that's where we really start to feel disconnected. She feels disconnected, right? We always view the other person. We always view our wives as, I know everything about her already. What is there new to learn, right? I've known her for 15 years, 20 years, whatever it is. I would argue though, Jennings, how old are you?
39.
39. Are you the same guy at 39 that you were at 30?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Are you the same guy at 39 that you were at 35? No, we grow, we evolve, we change, right? And we have moral compasses, right? We have foundational things that really don't change, but we grow and we evolve and we become new people, so to speak, right? We have different interests, different things intrigue us. We want to do different things. As soon as we label our wives as, I know everything about her, and we might have known her in her 20s, that's a huge miss. And you're right. We can ask better questions, be constantly curious. And the cool thing too, what you're really talking about is generative questions. Generative questions are when you ask your wife, tell me about your favorite childhood memory and why is that so meaningful to you? What you're doing is she now has to go think about all these amazing experiences as a kid, and you're the one who brought her there, right? So this is what happens. She's like, oh, that's a really good question. And she smiles and she kind of like looks up a little bit. And what she's doing is she's feeling that energy and all these amazing thoughts and memories come racing to her mind. And then she gets to share them with you, which makes her feel more connected to you, right? And the coolest thing we can do in that moment is listen, ask for more detail, tell me more about that. That is where connection happens. That's where that depth happens. And yeah, how was your day? How'd you sleep? What's for dinner? That's not going to do any of that stuff. So there is definitely a power in that, man. Well, listen, I want to make sure that the guys especially the guys out there who are interested in real estate, because right now the stock market is beating the snot out of all of us right now. But where, you have become just an absolute guru in this space of real estate and multifamily and investing. And you've got a plethora of resources. You even have a Facebook community. You've got something called the Deal Room. But I want to make sure that the men can find you if they want to learn more about real estate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm available, right? I try to be pretty good with my messages and stuff. If you want to reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram, Jennings Foster Smith Jr. on Instagram, and then if you Jennings Foster Smith on Facebook. But my first million in multifamily is a great place to start. So if you sign up and join that group, we send you 5 free resources, how I raised $90,000 to close my first deal, our sample pitch deck. We'll give you like a little mini deal calculator analyzer so you can start looking at your own multifamily deals. How to make a compelling written pitch to raise capital from investors, how to find off-market deals, that sort of thing. If you want to just start learning how to do it for yourself. If you're just looking to invest and you don't want to buy your own apartments, you don't want to deal with any of that, then we can help you out there as well. And then the people that they get into the free group, they love it. They're interested in it. This is something that they want to commit to. Just like your thing, we have a deal room, but it's a commitment. It takes time and it takes money. What we pay for, we pay attention to. And so I have this group, and about 1 to 2% of the big group joins that group, but that group closes deals. Deals are coming out of that group every single week. There's about 300 people in that private, the paid group, but they're the ones that are paying attention to it. And when the bill hits your credit card, you're like, dang it, I need to show up for those calls. I need to underwrite deals. I need to call brokers. I need to be building my investor list. I want to make a change in my life. I don't want to accept mediocre anymore. And I like real estate. And so we just give people an environment to win and a network to plug into of loan sponsors, capital raisers, off-market deals, and people that they can partner with. Because multifamily is a little different than just buying a rental home. You typically need teammates to get a multi-million-dollar deal across the table, but you don't need money. You don't need credit. You just need tenacity and the right people relationships to get those deals across the finish line.
So cool, man. I remember my first multifamily deal. I wasn't the one who formulated and founded it. I just invested in it. And I was like, what is this all about? This is like totally new. And then of course, now me, you, and a couple of your partners were in on a deal together as well, which I love. I've gotten to learn a lot from you guys and your team. But listen, guys, we're going to have all this stuff in the show notes for you guys. What I can tell you is Jennings is a really, really good man, very ethical in what he does. I mean, you guys heard it from him today. Like, it's not just about business and it's not just about making money. This is about family for him, right? So we're going to have all the links in the show notes for you guys, so you won't have to go too far for it. Just head on over to thedadedge.com/Friday61 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/Friday for this Friday 61 for this show. Jennings, dude, this was awesome. I really, really loved it. We covered business. We covered 3 tenets in business. We covered agreements with our kids, right? And how we can leverage that. And we also covered how we can connect with our wives, no matter how busy we are, no matter how many 4+ kids we have. 4 kids. A lot of people, when we say 4 kids, I don't know about you, but when I tell people I have 4 kids, I usually just say wow before they do.
Yeah.
That's what I hear. Wow.
You got your hands full. You must be busy.
Yeah. Well, that's one way to live your life. But man, this was awesome. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, dude, it was great. I appreciate it. I've had a lot of fun in your group, and it's been awesome getting to know you and utilize those tools. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate you very much. Gentlemen, go out, live legendary. Take care.